guys, Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and I'm back with another D&D 101 video. This time, I want to talk to you about multiclassing. And the only reason I'm not going to talk about whether you should multiclass or multiclass builds or any of that kind of stuff, because that's a whole separate topic. But just, what is multiclassing, the process of multiclassing, what you need to have to multiclass into certain classes compared with other classes, and sometimes the benefits that you get from that. So, let's take a look. So right here, we are in Chapter 6 of the Player's Handbook. This starts off with a whole section on multiclassing. Now, I'm going to paraphrase this for you, except for the key bits, but I would recommend, if multiclassing is something that you're thinking about in your game, that you go ahead and read this chapter. So, long story short, when you look at a character, if you're 3 levels of one class and 2 levels of another, I think they use it right here as the example, is 3 levels of wizard and 2 levels of fighter, you are considered to be a 5th level character. Therefore, meaning you will never be able to hit 20 levels in one class because you dipped out or multiclassed into another class. Things that should be known that we'll get into is certain things based off character level, certain things are, this was your whole overall total level, other things are based on class level. But first of all, can you multiclass? Is a question you actually have to ask. In 5th edition, the magic number for multiclassing is 13. What that means is this table that you can see right here shows you all of the classes and the ability score minimum required to multiclass into or out of, which is, I feel, something people often stumble upon. So if I'm a barbarian, my strength to be a so you can be a barbarian, no problem. If you want to multi-class out of barbarian, you still need to have the minimum requirement of being a barbarian. So if you're a barbarian with a 12 strength, you may want to rethink your class decision possibly, but if you're a barbarian with a 12 strength, you can never multi-class until you hit 13 strength. Otherwise, you just can't do it. That's the way the mechanic is designed. So if I'm a barbarian and I want to become a bardbarian and multi-class into bard, I need to have both a 13 in strength and a 13 in charisma to even think about multi-classing. So both of those numbers need to be at 13 to multi-class. Certain things you'll see work out in your favor. Like if you wanted to be a multi-class sorcerer, warlock, bard, you need a charisma of 13. If you have a charisma of 13, that allows you to multi-class into all 3 of those classes with just that one stat. Same thing we can see here with cleric and druid is a wisdom of 13. A wizard's the only one that requires intelligence. And then you can see these middle martial ones here, fighter, monk, paladin, ranger. Fighter requires 13 strength or 13 dexterity, so you have some flexibility there. But monk, paladin, and ranger require 2 stats at 13. So if you want to be a monk barbarian, you need to have strength of 13, dexterity of 13, and wisdom of 13. So again, the number needs to be 13 for the class you're starting in and the class you're going to multi-class into. So that's something I feel like, I know a lot of people when they looked at this table initially said, oh, well, to multiclass into bard as a barbarian, I only need a charisma of 13. No, you need a charisma and a strength of 13. Just wanted to put that out there. So experience points. Now, this may or may not affect you if your game doesn't use experience points, but the level advancement is based off of your total character level. So if it's 900 experience points to level 3, and you're a level 1 cleric, level 1 druid, you still only need 900. You don't have the lesser amount. The character advancement table in the beginning of the player's handbook that shows experience points goes on the character's overall level. Yeah, so here it says here, so if you're a cleric 6, fighter 1, you must gain enough XP to hit level 8 to level you up. Hit points and hit dice. You gain so if you look at any one of the classes, it'll say hit points at first level, and then hit points at level beyond first. And for whatever class you choose, hit points at first level is the maximum of that hit die. If it's a D8, you get, at level 1, 8 plus your constitution modifier. or 12 plus your Constitution modifier if you're a barbarian. That only happens when you gain the first level ever in that. So, you gain the hit points from your new class as described for levels after first. So, because you only ever hit first level one time, even if you multiclassed into every other class, you still count those as levels after first. You had the hit dice granted by all your classes to your form, to your hit dice pool. So if you're a barbarian bard, you have however many d12s for being a barbarian and however many d8s for being a bard. This isn't too big of a deal until you come into the time of short rest healing. If you want to take a short rest and gain HP back, you need to be able to keep track of which hit dice are from which class. And it says it right here, if you're a 5th level paladin, 5th level fighter, you have 10d10 because the hit die didn't change. But if you're a paladin 5, cleric 5, you have 5d10 hit dice and 5d8. Your proficiency bonus is also tied to your character level. So if you look at any character class, you see the proficiency bonus number 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. It's the overall number of your total class levels determines what your proficiency bonus is. Now, this is one of the things that I feel like sometimes people overlook. So, when you start a level in a class, you get all of the things that are granted by that first level. You do not gain additional saving throw proficiencies or skill proficiencies unless I'll tell you in just a sec. So if I start out, if I know my character is going to be a fighter rogue, I know that fighters only get 2 skill proficiencies, but I know that rogues get 4. So while I may lose out on, that little bit of extra HP at first level for starting as a fighter, I'd start off with an extra 2 skills if I started as a rogue as opposed to a fighter. So these are things you have to consider if multiclassing is in your future. But certain classes do grant you things when you multiclass into them. So if you multiclass one level into Barbarian, you get proficiency in shields, simple weapons, and martial weapons. Okay, not too bad. If you multiclass into Bard, you get proficiency in light armor, 1 skill of your choice, and 1 musical instrument of your choice. So that actually, multiclassing into Bard gives you a skill. Cleric is light armor, medium armor, and shields. Druid, light armor, medium armor, and shields. You still cannot wear metal, though. Fighter is light armor, medium armor, shield, simple, and martial weapons. Monk is simple weapons and short swords. Paladin, light armor, medium armor, shields, simple weapons, martial weapons. Ranger, light armor, medium armor, shields, simple weapons, martial weapons, and 1 skill from the Ranger skill list. Rogue is light armor, 1 skill from the Rogue skill list, and Thieves' Tools. Sorcerer is nothing. Warlock is light armor and simple weapons, and Wizard is nothing. What you should probably have taken notice is multiclassing into no class grants you proficiency in heavy armor. So the only way to gain proficiency in heavy armor is to start at level 1 as a fighter, start at level 1 as a paladin, take the heavy armor mastery feat, if feats are allowed in your game. More often than not they are, but if they're not, that's something to consider. Or multiclass into cleric to one of the clerics that gets you certain cleric abilities at level 1 grant you proficiency in heavy armor. But there is no way to multi-class, without the exception of those cleric things I just told you about, to gain heavy armor. Just want to put that out there. But this is very important, so if you have multi-classed in the past, and I haven't checked this table here on page 164 of the Player's Handbook, I highly recommend it. Alright, other things that come into effect that also come up very often with multi-classing. If you have Channel Divinity. Channel Divinity is a feature granted to clerics and paladins. You do not stack them. For example, if you are a cleric 6, paladin 4, you can use your Channel Divinity twice between rests because you are high enough level in the cleric class to have more uses. Whenever you use the feature, you can choose any of the Channel Divinity options available to you from your 2 classes. So what this is a cleric gets Channel Divinity, I believe, at level 2, then another one at level 6, and then another one, I think, at 14, or maybe a little later. Paladins get 1 at level 3. So it wouldn't be a quick way to take 2 levels of Cleric and 3 levels of Paladin to get your 2 Channel Divinity. They don't, what does it say? Getting the feature, again, doesn't give you an additional use of it. If you get it, if in the class you're in it says you get an additional use of that feature, that's how that works. But multiple instances of the same feature do not stack. Similar to what we talked about in armor class calculation, multiple armor class formulas do not stack. In this case, multiple features granting the same thing do not stack. Same goes as to the next set here for extra attack. If you're 5 levels of fighter, get an extra attack, and then 5 levels of paladin and also get extra attack, you do not get 3 attacks. You still get 2 because this is the same feature twice, so it doesn't stack. Again, if you are 11 levels in fighter, that says you get a 3rd attack when you take the attack action, but that is not the same as extra attack twice. It also says, similarly, the Warlock's Eldritch Invocation Thirsting Blade does not give you additional attacks if you also have extra attacks. So, something to think about if you're going to multi-class into multiple classes that give you extra attack. More often than not, if you have 2 that are going to be at level 5, you're not gaining anything from that, really. So, sometimes, that's why I recommend if you're going to multi-class multiple martial classes, either probably only go in 3 to 4 levels so you don't have to deal with the double extra attack not benefiting you. And same thing as we discussed in armor calculation, and it's even stated right here, if you already have the unarmored defense feature, you cannot gain it from another class. Spellcasting is a little bit different. So the spellcasting feature you can obtain from multiple sources, but I did do a whole section on spells, but let's go ahead and take a look here. So, spells known and prepared. You determine your spells you know and prepare for each class separately. So if you are, in this instance, a Ranger for Wizard 3, you know 3 first-level Ranger spells based on your levels in Ranger. And as a 3rd-level Wizard, you know 3 Wizard cantrips, and your spellbook contains 10 spells, 2 of which, the 2 you gain from when you reach level 3 in a Wizard, can be 2nd-level spells. If your intelligence is 16, you can prepare 6 wizard spells from your spellbook. Each spell you know and prepare is associated with one of your classes, and you use the corresponding ability modifier for that. So if you're casting a wizard spell, you use intelligence in that example. A ranger spell, you use wisdom. And again, you just know your ranger spells because they're spells known, and you would choose your wizard spells that you prepare as themselves. Similarly, it talks about a spellcasting focus such as a holy symbol can only be used for spells associated with that class. Now, spell slots are a different story. This is integral for this. This is page, 165 here? Multi-class spellcaster spell slots per spell level. Now remember, as we said, certain things are keyed off of your total character level. So here's from a full caster. If you ever hear the term full caster, this means a class that gets spellcasting at level 1. Versus a half caster, which gets it at level 2. Versus a 3rd caster, which gets it at level 3. And you can see here's the progression of from 1st level all the way up to 20th level. If you were a full caster, this is what your spell slot breakdown would look like. Now, if you multi-class multiple spellcasting classes, you may find you actually have access to spell slots of a level that you cannot cast. So basically anything that's a full caster, bard, cleric, druid, sorcerer, or wizard, theirs is 1-to-1. Classes that are half casters like paladin and ranger, it's half. And if you're a 3rd caster, like a Eldritch Knight or an Arcane Trickster Rogue, you add a 1/3 of that. So what does that mean? Let's take a look. So here they're talking about a Ranger Wizard again. So if you have more than one spellcasting class, this table may give you spell slots of a level that is higher than the spells you actually know how to cast. So you may come into a point where I have a 1 4th level spell slot, but I have no 4th level spells that I can cast. You can still use that 4th level slot to upcast one of your lower level spells, but you can never cast a 4th level spell if you don't have, access to those spells yet. I'm not sure that made a lot of sense, but let's read the example. I hope it'll explain. So, yep, this table might give you spell slots of a level higher than spell slots you actually have, or know or can prepare. You can use those slots still, but you can only use them to cast lower level spells. If a lower level spell that you cast, like Burning Hands, has an enhanced effect when you cast it out of a higher level slot, you can use the enhanced effect even though you don't have any spells of that level. And here's the example. The Ranger Wizard we talked about before, you count as a 5th level character when determining your spell slots. You have 4 1st level slots, 3 2nd level slots, and 2 3rd level slots. However, you don't know any 3rd level spells, nor do you know any 2nd level Ranger spells. You can use the spell slots of these levels to cast the spells you do know and personally enhance their effects. So for that example, it was a 4 Ranger, 3 Wizard. So 3 Wizard, we add up directly, 1, 2, 3, and then they said 4 levels of Ranger, which is a half caster, so it's half. So only 4 and half is 2, 1, 2. So they're using spell slots. They have spell slots as if a 5th level character, even though they are really a 4th level Ranger, 3rd level Wizard. Now the only thing that throws a monkey wrench into all of this is the Pact Magic feature of a Warlock. So if you have spellcasting and Pact Magic from a Warlock, those don't stack, but they can be interused. So here we go. If you have the Pact Magic class feature from the Warlock class, you can use the spell slots you gain from Pact Magic to cast spells you know or have prepared from classes with the spellcasting class feature. And you can use the spell slots you gain from the spellcasting class feature to cast Warlock spells you know. The only issue that I've seen come up a bunch is if I'm a higher level Warlock, I cast all of my Pact-based magic spells at 5th level. If I convert this over to, say, my Sorcerer, that's a 5th level spell slot now that I'm using my Pact Magic feature. But can it go the other way? Can I use one of my spell slots from being a Sorcerer? Does it automatically upcast to 5th level when I'm funneling it into my Pact Magic? That one's still, the jury's out, but my gut tells me no, that's not the case. But that's not really what the focus was of this. This was just to talk about multiclassing and a couple things that you guys should know in case you're looking to multiclass to gain that extra attack at level 10, that 3rd attack at level 10 that won't happen, or multiclassing to gain heavy armor proficiency. It's also not a thing that you get. So anyway, guys, I hope you found this video at least somewhat informative if you're a newer player or a veteran player who's just revisiting rules. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and I'll see you next time.